And welcome to WARBIRD Radio. I'm Matt Jolly. We're having a great time this time of year because it's Airshow season, and part of Airshow season means travel, and we're getting ready to travel down to Gold Coast, Australia, for the big Pacific Airshow Gold Coast edition down there. I'm looking forward to it. You can follow along right here at WARBIRD Radio. Now, the interesting thing about this particular show, it's a massive continent, as you're aware, especially those of you who live there. And so Warbird participation at air shows is often, it's not very frequent, especially in Gold Coast and along the beach down there. Joining me now to talk about this from Australia, he's already on the ground, boots on the ground down there, is Kevin Elliott. He's the CEO of Pacific Airshow and of Code 4 Media. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Good morning, or whatever time it is down there, Matt, or up there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Whatever time.
I think I'm down under. I'm down under, you're not.
I'm not. The big news right now is that Ken Ashmore dug up a P-40, a Focke-Wulf 190, and a P-51, and he's bringing them to Gold Coast with your team. That is remarkable to have not one, not two, but three frontline fighters from World War II. I mean, icons of that generation. That's pretty exciting. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we wanted to do. We when we set out to do this air show down under, we knew it was going to be difficult, right? They do have a tremendous aviation heritage, obviously, here in Australia, a great alliance with the United States, but we wanted to try to put something together that was the Pacific Airshow brand and flavor, right? So one Warbird just wasn't enough for us. And honestly, we scoured the country. And when I say we scoured the country, I mean, I sent Ken Ashmore out in a cat burglar outfit right, and with a couple screwdrivers and some flashlights.
Tried to find.
And he went hanger by hanger. He was only stung by about 3 scorpions and bitten by 2 huntsman spiders. But subsequently, we've come up with the lineup that we've got. And we're going to put them together in about a 20-minute sort of aerial performance that ultimately ends in the Mustang and the Spit chasing off the Focke-Wulf.
I think it's going to be cool. It's going to be a great time. And I have yet to see this particular FW-190, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. The gentleman who flies this is quite well known down there. Chris Mayer with the Focke-Wulf, and Doug Hamilton, I believe, is flying the Mustang. And I don't know who's flying the P-40 down there. But you've got some other aircraft that are coming up as well, including some stuff from the United States. We're having the U.S. Marine Corps' MV-22. And this is pretty cool. There's a 4-ship called the Red Star Roulettes that are very popular down there. They're going to be there. And I'm just going through the Warbird list. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. KC-135 from the United States Air Force. The C-17 demo is going to be there. You've got some L-39s, the RAAF C-130. The Royal Canadian Air Force is even going to be there with their 150 Polaris, which will be pretty cool. And then a host of other things. But the big stars of Pacific Airshow Gold Coast are, of course, the Royal Australian Air Force there and their roulettes. Going to be a lot of fun to see that. And the Super Hornet.
Yeah, they're going to have their F-18 Super Hornet. They're going to be doing, I think it's almost a 15-minute handling demonstration each day. And don't forget the piece de resistance, the Yak 110, which I just got confirmation has officially been test flown as of this morning. It was quite a process to get that approved by CASA. They had never seen anything quite that freakish before. And so, we just, Ben Anderson's over here. He's been working away, putting it together in our hangar just up the way. And test flown this morning, and she's ready to go. Jeff Bourbon will hit the ground here next week, and we're ready to rock and roll, baby.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I met you years ago now, it seems like, and I love working with you. Pacific Air Show, Huntington Beach, which is happening in just about a month after we finish this thing, it seems like, a matter of weeks.
Unbelievable.
In October, the first weekend in October, in California, in Huntington Beach there. A great show, a groundbreaking show, really, in that you've taken the rule book for air shows, just kind of thrown them out the window, and you said, I'm going to do things my way. Your background, though, in aviation, let's talk a little bit about this. You were a kid growing up there in Huntington Beach, Orange County, and just fell in love with airplanes, and, well, the rest is history. You've got a huge production company there in this. really affords you a competitive edge in the airshow world because nobody does things like you. What's that like?
Yeah, you kind of you touched on it. I mean, growing up as a kid flying remote control airplanes, that was my passion, right? That's all I did. My friends were out, whatever they were doing, playing G.I. Joe. I was in the garage gluing my fingers together, as my mom likes to say. It was, I learned a lot, right? But mostly I developed a love for airplanes, a love for aviation. And then, of course, you grow up, you get a job. That kind of sucks. But I started my company in 2006, and it happened to be in the event production space. So I've grown this business over nearly 17 years, I think, more than that. And subsequently, watched Ken Ashmore and company launch the Airshow in Huntington Beach in 2016. I went to it and thought, this is special. I should see if I can help and somehow get involved. And I did, right? They say you're supposed to marry your passion and your profession. And so, I thought it was a good excuse. And so far, it's working out. We're doing a lot of cool things. We're trying to break the mold. We're having fun. I can't say we're making any money doing it, but I mean, we're working on that. So at the end of the day, that's not the primary objective. To your point, our objective is to really redefine the airshow experience, put out something that's new, try to change people's ideas, the way that they think, how they think. Just because it's always been done a certain way doesn't mean that that's how it has to be done. And certainly that's been a task in California. But to be honest, it's even more of a challenge here in Australia because, they are just sort of stuck in the way that they've always done things. Although I think, generally speaking, people are very excited to see this event delivery here in a couple weeks.
I think it's going to be great. I'm just excited to be a part of it. Let's talk a little bit about what this means for our friendship here with the Australians. Of course, obviously, you and I are Americans, and very much so, and we're going down there. This is the first time that a U.S. company has ever put on an air show down there, and it's a pivotal time, a very pivotal time in our country's history, especially in the Pacific.
Well, I think, when 3.5 years ago, we started the process of trying to, make this event a reality. And so I think the timing of it couldn't really be more fortuitous given the recent visit from Secretary Blinken. I mean, the United States and the Australian alliance has never been more significant or closer than it is right now. And so I think the challenge that we face as the air show is obviously remaining a significant priority in light of all of the, world affairs, right? But I certainly feel like the air show, once it actually occurs, people will take more significant note of the significance that it brings to the mateship between our two countries. And that's really what we always wanted, right? We fly American flags up and down the block, right, in America, and it's kind of like, it's just what we do. You don't see that here. There's not that same level of patriotism. I'm not saying they don't love their country, but it's not a theme. And so, I hope to inject a little bit of that here in Southeast Queensland. We'll be, as an example, I've taken a rugby ball and I've been the person to bring the ball out onto the field at 2 matches now in front of 30,000 screaming fans, just to celebrate Pacific Airshow. We've had the flag jumped into the stadium twice in the last 2 weeks where we got to be on the field, and it's been pretty cool. But one thing that really struck me is they don't actually sing their national anthem at the start of these games, which is obviously a major feature of professional sports in the United States. So I think if we can try to instill a little bit of our way of thinking, as I mentioned, redefining the airshow experience, even here in Australia, and bringing them along in a little bit of that American way of thinking, I think this relationship is just one that is truly special.
Kevin, as we wrap things up, let's talk about how folks can come and see Pacific Airshow Gold Coast. How's the best way to get tickets and to get their butts on the beach down there?
Well, PacificAirshow.com is where you buy the tickets. You just go to PacificAirshow.com and click on Gold Coast. Don't get confused. And click on Huntington Beach, or you're coming to California instead of Australia. There's lots of great options. We've got premium hospitality options. Actually, in a lot of ways, it's I think it's going to be a different experience than Huntington Beach, but maybe even a more elevated experience than Huntington Beach in certain ways. But PacificAirshow.com is where you head over to get that. And of course, you've got your tickets, Matt.
I have my. I'm ready. Yeah.
People of Australia, I've seen signs. They say, "Where is Matt? We want Matt." the official voice of Pacific Airshow. Of course, we couldn't go anywhere in the world without you. How are you feeling about it? I mean, I know you're the host of this show, but I'm taking the reins here.
Honestly, I don't. I think my style is a little different. I think our style is a little different. So I'm a little nervous. I'm kind of waiting for Friday to roll around, and we'll just see what happens. Because it's so different. What happens at Pacific Airshow than any other show in the United States, and you take that down to Australia. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
Well, I think you're going to be the front line of communicating the message to the fans that have bought a ticket, the people that have invested. So no pressure. All right, so you're ready. You got this. It's a good time. They're good people, and we're really excited to share with them this special experience that we've created together. All of us, you, myself, Wayne, Ken, the whole team, hundreds of us, are going to show them something they've never seen before. So thanks for your support, Matt.
Kevin Elliott from Pacific Airshow, thanks for coming on. We have to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue this Airshow themed show, and we're going to talk with one of the last great barnstorming pilots alive today. This guy, his entire routine harkens back to just a bygone generation, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. And how he got his start in aviation is completely unorthodox. But it's a story that a lot of us probably shared. I think you're really going to enjoy Clemens Kuhlig, better known as Chef Pitts, when we come back here on WARBIRD Radio. Right after this, stay with us.
This is WARBIRD Radio.
Why go to an old-fashioned air show when you can drink an old-fashioned sitting in a private beach cabana with your friends at the world's most cutting-edge air show? And why stand shoulder to shoulder in a distant crowd outside general admission where the tall guy in front of you says, "Oh, dude, did you just see that?" And you're thinking, "No, I just saw the back of your big head." Buy a ticket to access the only place you can hear the show, feel the music, and see what the is going on. And while you're there, experience curated cuisine from the best chefs across LA. Don't drag that cooler of beer through the sand. We already did that for you, baby. But with big trucks and a huge-ass team of people. Open bar? Check. Luxurious clubs? Double check. Be in the chalets where the performers and the cowboy cops drop by. Get up close and personal to capture all the action. Then post that on your social. You know you will. Don't just go to Pacific Airshow. Book a ticket. Be in the action before it's too late. Pacific Airshow. Redefining the airshow experience.
This is WARBIRD Radio.
And welcome back here to WARBIRD Radio. Matt Jolly hanging out with you. I'll tell you what, you've got to subscribe to the blog there, to our newsletter. It's not really a newsletter anymore. It's more like we'll write something, we'll post on the site, and then we'll send it out to you. So it's not spam. We're never going to do that to you, but just enter your email address in, and we'll share it with you. The other great thing about doing that is you'll never miss an episode, because oftentimes when we do publish a new show, especially a feature, I'll send it out on email. So you can get it that way. It's no secret, I love RC airplanes. I grew up flying radio control, and it was a huge part of my life. Got me into air show announcing, believe it or not. That's a long story, but I love it. And one of my air show buddies is joining me now, Clemens Kuhlig, better known as Chef Pitts. This guy, if you can imagine growing up in a candy store, he grew up in a model shop. How cool is that, Chef? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Yeah. Dad had a model shop.
Were you into it? I mean, was this like you probably hated it because it was just what Dad did, but I mean,
no,
for most kids.
I loved it. Yeah. Okay. No, I needed no pressure to, really like airplanes and messing around with them. And, I went the whole gamut. It started off with hand launch gliders, little balsa hand launch gliders, and into rubber band powered, peanut scale and a little bigger free flight models and stuff, and then into control line. and then finally into RC models, starting off with the single channel radio control airplanes. You probably remember those.
Well, yeah, I remember
Pulse,
the old, yeah,
the Pulse
yeah.
rudder would, flip back and forth, and if you held the stick to the right, it would just kind of pop to the right, Yeah, we started off with those.
The old rubber band powered, servos and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing went, from the ground up, I guess you could say, and then by the time my dad had the model shop, we were, fully into, the radio control models, 60 size being the really the biggest we kind of mess with at that time. The giant scale was just starting to catch on. And I'm talking about when I was about 7, 8, 9, something like that. I started with a little stuff, the gliders and stuff at about 5, I think. So my dad likes sports scale, and I like pattern. And so we ended up having a lot of different SIG airplanes. That was kind of what we ended up with. He had a beautiful Ryan STA, in John Gosney's colors. I had a Comet, a SIG Comet that I flew in a couple competitions where I was about 10 or so, I think. And then ended up flying that SIG Super Chipmunk, the one with the profile fuselage, and it had the plastic shells for the fuselage sides.
Yeah, you're going way back now. I mean, I'm thinking...
when you had to build them, there was no... A couple of ARFs maybe when they first came out, it was still pretty much a kit. It was not open the box and plug it in and go fly.
And what about the Cougar? Did you ever get to fly that? The SIG Cougar. The SIG Cougar. Remember that one? What a great one.
Yep, for sure. Yep, with a Fox 45 on it, which, the Fox 45 would just eat dirt, and it would just run and run and run and run. And that SIG Comet we had, ended up, that was one of the ones that lived the longest and ended up getting hung up in the model shop, just oil soaked, the foam quarter wings and it was just worn out instead of just, as we used to say, put into an instant kit.
Yeah. Right. We rekitted it this weekend, Mom. Don't worry about it. It'll be all right.
Yeah, there was a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things that I loved about RC, and one of the things that I love about you, Clemens, is your love of all things old Airshow, and you really harken back to the days of the Barnstormer. In fact, I've had this conversation, and I'll leave the performers that I've had this conversation with. I'll leave their names out of it, Nathan Hammond and a couple of other folks. But you're like the last real Airshow guy. I mean, really and truly. I mean, cut from that old school fabric. I mean, you're kind of it. And I think it wasn't that you were born into it. It was that you became it. I mean, you sought this out. You're the nomad still living in a teepee, traversing the Wild West. I mean, you've sought this life out. I mean, you left for those of you who don't know Chef Pitts, he left a very glamorous life as an executive chef and then literally joined the circus.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the barnstormers and that kind of stuff, and that was, kind of a big part of it because it's so romantic for one thing, but one of the things that really kind of, molded my kind of aviation personality, I guess you could say, is we used to take a trip. It was a 6-hour drive. I want to say it was 6-hour drive up and 6-hour drive back. And we used to go to Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome in the fall and go see the Sunday show. You mentioned Nate Hammond. I think he flew for the
He grew up there. Yeah, he did. He grew up there. I mean, he and his brother both with the dad flying.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Cool stuff up
Which
there.
is amazing. Yeah. When I found that out, I was talking to him one day. I was just so jealous, But yeah, we used to go to the show. We used to go and drive up there and see, pick a weekend and go up there and see the Sunday show. We saw a couple Saturday shows, but we usually go for the Sunday. For those that don't know, the Saturday is like the golden age type of thing. and the Pioneers and whatever. And then the Sunday show is always the World War I stuff. And so that's what we go and see most of the time. And with, Cole's Fokker triplane with that Werner Voss face on it. That's why I have that Werner Voss face on the cowling in my pits.
I love it.
Kind of an homage to that, you know.
No, I totally get it.
It's still on there. If you punch up old Rhinebeck Aerodrome images, about the third one in, you'll see that triplane with that face on it. So that, and that whole thing, at that place, with the sound of those rotary engines and, the
right, the mags going. Oh yeah.
And the smell and all that stuff, and of course biplanes and triplanes and that kind of stuff. So, that was a big part of it, and again, we're talking about, 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, when I was that age and going and seeing that stuff. So, and I also remember one time we were watching the show and one of the Segala guys, and I don't remember which one it was, because there was a couple brothers, I think, and there was an old man, I'm not sure, but he came by in a Pitts S1T during the show. I think he was coming home from an air show and got on the radio and they said, come on by for a pass. And so you're watching these World War I airplanes, go around, and then he came in that S1T, and just came in real low and pulled up on a 45 and did a snap roll and then left. And
back in the day when you could do that, right?
Yeah, I'm like, that was something,
Well, you've built your own airplane. You built your own pits. Of course, it won all kinds of awards when you rolled it out at Sun and Fun there. And then you started flying air shows. You've got to tell the story, though, because I just love this story. You picked up the phone and called a lady who has an airplane in the Smithsonian. She's a hero of mine, has been my whole life. And you just, this is what I love about Clemens. You just pick up the phone and you called Patty Wagstaff, and you're like, hi, I'm a chef, and I'm going to be an airshow pilot, and I'd like you to help me. Isn't that kind of how it went?
Yeah, kind of. How do you do that, right? So you have this airplane and it's almost done, and it's, in my garage, and it's getting close to being finished, and the whole point was to fly air shows, right? Well, how do you do that? So, what do? You Google it, right? And start to try and figure out what you do. So you have to get a waiver, right? And I found, just searching around, there was ACES, which is an aerobatic competency evaluator. And there's a few in Florida, and Patty was one of them. And there's some others, but the other one I was looking at was Keoki Gray. And, for that first evaluation, I didn't call Patty because I was too afraid to. And I went to Keoki, and it turns out that was a pretty good move. For those people that don't know, Keoki Gray is a very, very accomplished airshow pilot. He flew in a 4-ship pit special team called the Holiday Inn team. And he also flew for the Red Baron Pizza Squadron in the Stearmans. He was a slot pilot, I think, in the Stearmans. And so that was just, a real stroke of luck, for me that we sat down for hours. And so for a couple hours, 2 hours, I think, we sat and during the evaluation, and he went through every aspect of airshow flying, like kind of taking the weekend into piece by piece. And one kind of funny thing I remember was I had my little notebook, I had a little moleskin notebook when we were going through the thing, and I was taking notes of, stuff that we were talking about. And we're talking about the briefing, and he says, during the briefing, they'll tell you about the pyro, where it is and whatever, if they have it. And he says, he goes, so just know where it is. So if you have some kind of emergency or something, you can avoid it. And he goes, don't land on the pyro. And I took my pen and I wrote down in the book, don't land on pyro. Okay, got it.
that was your first encounter with that, the stuff that might kill you.
Yeah.
What did you think in the
So-
briefing when they're given that briefing out and they say, if you land there, don't do anything, we'll come to you.
Yeah, the pyro guys are hilarious, as you would think they would be. The classic, if it doesn't look like it grew there, don't step on it.
Right.
Right.
And if we're running,
you see
keep
us
up.
running, and if you see us running, just follow us.
Yeah.
Follow one of us, because we
Right.
know where everything is.
Right.
So, yeah, those guys are funny, and gals for that matter.
Well, you've perfected the inverted ribbon cut now, and there's a lot of lore in how you do that. And one of my favorite stories was sitting around the table with you and Patty that night down in Florida there at some show.
Yep.
I can't remember what show we were at, but anyway, we were all sitting. Punta Gorda. We were down there, and you shared the story about flying through that farmer's field.
Sure. Yeah. And after that first evaluation, I started going to see Patty for, every year you get reevaluated. And so that's how that relationship kind of started. I started going to her after I went to Keoki for that first one. And for those that don't know, you start at 800 feet and then you fly so many shows and you go down to 500 and then you go down to 250. And then finally you can go down to the surface, right? And so you can fly as low as you want. And I was going from the surface down, or from 250 to the surface. And, and it had always been my goal really to do the inverted ribbon cut, because I had seen it done so many times, in the shows I saw when I was a kid. Art Scholl did his ribbon pickup, of course, it wasn't a cut. And Jim Parker in the Northeast, he flew an S2A and then he flew an S2S for a while before he retired and from airshow flying. And he did a double inverted ribbon cut. He'd cut the bottom one first and then do the top one. And so that was all. Leo, of course, did a ribbon cut with a 3/4 outside snap as he goes through it, and so that was always a goal of mine. So, and of course, Patty does one. She was the first woman to do it. And then, however many she's done, right? She's been doing it forever. So that was, what better person to try to, teach you how to do that. So a big part of it was, how do you do the ribbon? How do you tie it up? And, how long is it? That kind of thing. Technical issues, right? And when you go from 250 down to the surface, that's a big jump. That's a big change visually in what you see. So that's what you have to get used to. That's a big thing you have to get used to, is what the ground looks like, what the horizon looks like, etc. when you go from upside down to 250 to upside down at 25, right?
So how do you do? So you got to maybe put a disclaimer on this, though, that don't try this at home, but go find a field that you can do this at, and you did.
So I did, and there's an old duster strip that is just west of where I'm based, and it had a windsock on it at the end of the runway. And I looked it up, and it turns out if the field is on the chart, if it's currently on the chart, and the windsock has to be so high, and it turns out it has to be 16 feet high. So I'd go, and it was a paved strip. It was just a narrow paved strip. It's about 2,500 feet long, something like that. So I'd just go, set up on one end of it and roll upside down and go down it. And I always have cameras running. Whenever almost every time I fly that pitch, there's cameras running so I can go back and look at them after.
And did you call the guy or gal who owned this strip, or did you show?
I just
just showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that disclaimer again?
Right.
Yeah. So, no, I'd make a couple passes and then skedaddle before anybody it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, which is nice. No big roads around and no houses around. So, so you gradually work it down, and then I got it down to where I was level with the top of the windsock, 16 feet. So I figured if I got down to 16 feet, my poles are about 24. So I got 10 extra feet, right? So that should be easier that way.
Well, and there's all this lore about like how high to have the poles and what kind of pole. And that's all secret airshow stuff. But I think it's just a great story. I love the story of you going out and just getting lower and lower and working
just
your
getting,
way down.
just getting lower and lower. And, it's, one of the first things I did, I used to have this thin cushion on the seat that was, it wasn't any thicker than an inch. And the first time I started rolling upside down and flying that low, it was just high enough that it blocked my view. The top wing blocked my view a little bit. And so I took the cushion out, and then that was much better. And it's funny that only that little bit could make a difference, but it does, and so I have my cross country cushion, and then when I get there, I take it out and just sit on the bare wood.
I just love it. I love all the stories, and we got to have you back, Clemens. We really do. But if you want to find out about Chef Pitts, he's always on the road. Give folks a good way to get a hold of you and to see what you're doing out there.
Sure. I have a Facebook page that's under my name, Clemens Kuhlig, but if you search Facebook, Chef Pitts Airshows on Facebook, you'll find me pretty quick. And then my Instagram page is Chef Pitts Airshows. And my website, chefpittsairshows.com.
There you go. Well, Chef, thanks for coming on WARBIRD Radio, a departure from your usual media, but I just think it's great, and I love what you're doing, and I love working with you. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt. Yeah, thanks for having me, and we'll see you at the next show. Looking forward to it.
My thanks to Clemens Kuhlig for coming on, better known as Chef Pitts. If you're ever around and you see him performing, you've got to stop and watch. I'm telling you, when he pushes over out of that outside loop, comes barreling down, upside down, oh my goodness, does the inverted ribbon cut. Then he climbs at some point in the show and he does his dead stick routine. I'm telling you, the guy is just world class, right out of Waldo Pepper. You got to go see him. And what a zest. What a zest for life. Just love that guy. Again, my thanks to Clemens and to Kevin Elliott for coming on from Pacific Airshow. You can catch a performance here real soon down in Australia in Gold Coast. And then again in October, the first part of October, in Huntington Beach, California. So, Surfer's Paradise in Australia, Surf City, USA, two great destination cities. Come see us at Pacific Airshow. Going to be a wonderful, wonderful time. A lot of great interviews coming up here, a lot of great stories. We have some more archive presentations coming up for you, plus interviews from all the people you want to hear. Been talking to the Hentons, talked to Mike Spalding, talked to a bunch of folks. We're getting the interviews scheduled right now. As you know, Reno is fast approaching. So a lot of folks very, very busy as they get ready for this show in Reno. The last big one. It's going to be a great time, and I hope that you have a chance to go see that as well. So long for now, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon right here on WARBIRD Radio. So long for now.
This